Great pleasure to join you today, albeit electronically. I'm very sorry that I can't be there in person, but in just 6 days, we're going to be releasing our second annual Canadian Index of Wellbeing. It will be another milestone moment for Canada, we believe. So it was decided that it would be better if my virtual image made the trip to New Delhi, while my physical one stayed right here to prepare. Let me begin by thanking the OECD and the Government of India for this great opportunity to participate in the Fourth World Forum on Statistics, Knowledge, and Policy. It's hard for me to believe that it's been more than 5 years since I delivered a speech to the Second World Forum in Istanbul, and it's almost as difficult to believe how much we've all accomplished in that time. I'm very pleased that our collective efforts are beginning to bear fruit, and I want to congratulate all of you on your work and successes in going well beyond the GDP to create more complete and integrated ways of measuring societal well-being. Now, when we in Canada first started talking, roughly a decade ago, about measuring and reporting on our progress as a society, we realized that it begged the fundamental question, progress toward what? We made a firm commitment that whatever we came up with, it would have to be rooted in Canadian experience and grounded in the values that have shaped our country. Values such as fairness, diversity, equity, inclusion, health, safety, economic security, democracy, and sustainability. We began by bringing together under one umbrella leading Canadian and international indicator researchers and practitioners. We also brought in public policy experts, community groups, and well-being advocates. You'll note that our leadership comes not from government, as is probably the case in most countries, but from people who worked in civil society. Our vision has been entirely conceived and implemented by citizens and citizen-based organizations. We made the choice early in our developmental process. We felt that to earn the trust of the Canadian people, it was absolutely critical that we be seen as free from any partisan interest or government influence. That decision, of course, posed some great challenges for us in the terms of funding. We had to rely pretty heavily on seed money from several charitable foundations. We knew that approach would work best in Canada, and that's really what every country has to do, decide which path will lead to a better quality of life. We must be willing to embrace all avenues to success. We do, of course, talk to and encourage with government our discussions. When we release our second composite index next week, we'll be setting up briefing sessions with our federal government, and when we release provincial reports early in 2013 next year, we will organize provincial government briefings as well. I'm a little ahead of myself, so let me go back to an earlier part of our story. As a citizen-based and driven organization, our first big step was to engage Canadians through 3 rounds of coast-to-coast public consultations. And believe me, in a country the size of Canada, there's a lot of land within those coasts. We asked Canadians to speak candidly about what mattered to their quality of life and what we should be measuring. Over the next few years, our research experts then designed the Canadian Index of Wellbeing Framework, or CIW as we call it for short. The CIW includes 64 quality of life indicators grouped into 8 categories or domains. We also distill these numbers into a composite index with a single number that goes up and down, much like the stock market index, and provides a quick snapshot of how our quality of life is changing, for better or for worse. We are strong believers in the composite index approach. The simplicity of it makes it highly effective as a communications tool. It's our flagship product, and it's a great conversation starter. Our experts also put together 15 years worth of data with the support of Statistics Canada. They wrote detailed technical studies on each of the domains and put us through a rigorous peer and validation process to ensure that our methodology was sound and that our data was the best available. Well, to make a long story short, the CIW is now housed at the globally renowned University of Waterloo. Our work is built around two pillars of activity. The first is leading-edge research. The university has made a commitment to build a better future for Canada and the world by being a champion of innovation and collaboration in new and synergistic ways. So research. The second pillar is knowledge mobilization. This includes extensive public communications and community engagement. We see these two activities, research and public engagement, as fundamental to the process of transformative change. Last October, we released our first composite index of well-being. I won't go into all the details of our findings, though I would encourage you to check them out for yourselves on our website, ciw.ca. But here's our big picture finding, and I'm sure many of you have or will find something similar. Between 1994 and 2008, Canada's GDP rose by a very robust 31%. Meanwhile, however, the Canadian Index of Well-being went up by less than 1/3 of that amount. Less than 1/3. In other words, much of our productivity gain did not translate into improvements in the day-to-day quality of life of ordinary Canadians. In fact, not a single quality of life category kept pace with the growth of the GDP. We did see some modest gains in areas such as living standards and community vitality, but in other areas, such as the environment, time usage, leisure and culture, we lost ground. We moved further away from the vision we have of ourselves as a society. And as a relatively rich country, Canada is very fortunate to have choices. Now, for the first time, we have an evidence-based, integrated picture upon which to base progressive policies that better reflect our needs and values. Now more than ever, Canadians are empowered, I believe, to advocate for change and to hold their governments, our governments, accountable for the decisions that they make for us. My hope, of course, is that the CIW will open the door to a substantive national dialogue on the kinds of difficult challenges we will be confronted with over the coming decade, and the kind of choices that we have to make to optimize well-being for both humans and other species that share our planet. At the CIW, we are realistic in our approach, I'd like to think. We recognize that paradigms shift slowly. Changing the national dialogue and refocusing public policy decisions will take place over time, not overnight. But we're going to do our utmost to speed up the time frame for change within Canada. On the research front, we're planning to expand our data collection from the national level to the provincial and even to the community local levels. We'll also be focusing more on well-being at the subpopulation level, especially for groups most vulnerable to changes. And on the communications front, as I indicated earlier, we will be releasing our second Composite Index report on October 23rd. We hope that it will once again spark a national dialogue, debate if you will, on how we can improve the things that really matter to people and people's lives. On the community engagement front, we'll be strengthening our links with many other organizations that are also striving to improve quality of life at their community level, their municipal and provincial and regional levels. We are finding strong early interest in our work at the local level, where we're working from the bottom up with community-based organizations. We've already seen a number of municipalities and local groups use our framework to help bring about local change. Over the coming years, we're going to be expanding our efforts at that level because we believe that's where we'll achieve our greatest initial successes. My friends, that in a very large or very small nutshell is where we're at in our work in Canada. We hope that you can learn from our experience as we have learned from yours, and that we can continue to work together to build societies that are sustainable in every way, that offer a better quality of life for everyone. Thank you again for giving me this wonderful opportunity today. I wish all of you the best of luck in your important deliberations, both this week and into the future.